Well, welcome. Hello, I am Lynn. We got people jumping on a Periscope, jumping in on Blab. Glad to have you here. I've followed you for a while. I know we met through our friend Courtney. Courtney and I have been friends for a long time. She's awesome.
And the Nadia too, right?
Yeah, John and Nadia. They're awesome. I actually did a podcast with Nadia 2 weeks ago on personal branding. I'll have to share it with you. She's awesome.
Oh, I want to see it. I missed it.
She's very cool. I started a podcast a little while ago. I thought, I'd love to get some podcasts going. And then this came out. I'm like, why should I podcast when I can use this? But we purpose the content for all sorts of different things. So I'm really excited to be here with you. Listen, one of the key things, guys, one of the reasons I have the famous Danelle Delgado with us today is because she has some really awesome content to share with us, some information about what is your true path in life. As we come into a new year, we are all setting goals on what we want to accomplish, how we want to kick 2016 off with a big bang, how we really want to make life happen in 2016. And, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that there's not enough people out there that are really sharing the types of information that Danelle has and the types of information we're going to share with you today on this Blab. Because in all honesty, we live in an information era where you can go find anything you want from any source that you want, but sometimes that information isn't that great. Sometimes it doesn't completely apply to you, and you can get lost in the information, and then a couple weeks in, you're like, well, okay, I really should have just had a step-by-step process. So hopefully you'll give us some of that today, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's exactly what you're talking about. This is why we're going to be friends, because it's exactly why, excuse me, I created Life Intended, because I had seen enormous trainings around the world, and I had seen other ones that, presented themselves as enormous, and it was not correct, integrity-filled information. And I said, I want to be in a position where I can control that information. And, for the people who trust me, I've worked really hard to develop a trusted group of followers, and I want to deliver them the correct information.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
So we're going to share that.
Right? Right? Because we've had information before and learned that lesson.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that there is that. Okay. Are you getting feedback on your end?
I don't hear it. I'm doing good, but maybe it's me. I'm setting my phone over here. Is it better now?
I think so.
I can throw on my headset if we need it.
Yeah, maybe you should. I've got my mic here.
Okay. Hang on. Let me grab it.
Technical difficulties. Always love this.
Sorry. Hold on one sec. I'll be right back.
No worries. For those of you that have just joined us, if you want to send out to your followers, there's a little tweet button here on this side, I believe. Tweet or post it to Facebook. We'd love to have people join us and chat with us. We're excited. Excited. Now the feedback's gone away, Danelle. Jump on Periscope. Who's out there on Periscope? Who's joining us? Where are you joining us from on Periscope? While we're waiting here for a quick minute. Thanks for the hearts. Awesome. Now, one of the things we're going to cover today, as far as the concept of what is your path, is we want to ask a bunch of questions of, what are you really trying to do? How do you know if you're on the right path? Or what have you done to identify why, or a why that keeps you going, or a purpose, or a meaning, or a reason, or so on and so forth? Hey, welcome back.
Hi. Sorry. Okay.
As soon as you walked away, the echo went away. So I think we're good.
Oh, is it good?
Yeah, we're good now. So technical difficulties, we'll get this right. The great thing about recording this is we can cut and make sure that it all fits. Anyway, so let's get started. What I want you to do, I want you to give us your backstory. I want you to tell us a little bit more about Life Intended, a little bit more about what you're doing, what brought you to where you are today. Because from what I follow and what we've connected on Facebook, social media, and whatnot, I feel like you're one of those people that really understands what you're doing right now and where you're trying to go with life. and what path you're trying to formulate and so on and so forth. So share with us a little bit more about that.
Well, thanks. I'm either faking it really well or doing a good job. Just kidding. No, I think I'm one of those people, excuse me. Okay, sorry. I had pneumonia about a month ago, and it's still hanging on. I'm getting rid of it. But it's part of the health thing. Well, I think really what happened to me is I was kind of one of those people who was born running, right? Who just had to accomplish things, who had to go. I couldn't stand if something was done halfway. And so it kind of went into anything I did, that it didn't really matter what I was doing. I cared about it being done well. And then my whole life kind of transitioned where I didn't get to kind of choose what I wanted to do. I had a huge need to create a life, right? I was kind of one of those cookie cutter families growing up. And so, I went to school, I was a teacher, I was a youth pastor, I did all these things that I loved. I kind of got paid to be like a grown-up adult, paid for midnight tubing and, mission trips. And, but I loved impacting kids' lives. So that's always kind of been a part of me. I went to nursing school and then I taught and then, I did all these kind of things. And my whole heart was always to serve people, always to help, always to make an impact. More than just a difference, right? I wanted to make an impact that actually caused change and motivation with people, right? So I had that. And then what happened was my life kind of imploded unexpectedly. You guys know when life happens, you're not really it's not planned, right?
Right.
So I was married. I had 3 kids. We had 3 kids in 16 months, one and then twins 16 months later. So that was always shocking, right? That's always like, wow, instant family. And at that point in life, when your marriage struggles and you're trying to do life, it kind of messes everything up. It's like how the Meltons always talk about life, right? All the plates or balls you hold up in the air, they're all rubber, right? They bounce, but your family one is glass, right? Mm-hmm. And if you drop that one, it can make or break you. Yep. But I had 3 kids counting on me, and I decided that when I dropped that ball and I broke that most important piece in our world, that I wasn't going to let it break me, that I was determined to get up, to dust myself off and make a difference in the world and help my kids know that even when, life shatters, you can be rebuilt, and you can do it well and you can do it right the next time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I want to take a step. I want to interject here just really quick, if that's okay. So you had a life-changing event, mm-hmm. and you made a decision, right? You ultimately made a decision like, okay, I've got to do something. I think sometimes people who are living the world of mediocrity or living that world of, I call it insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I think sometimes that's the part that they're missing. So tell us a little bit about, because if we're talking about the ultimate path and how to figure out where to go and what to do, tell us a little bit about the decision process that happened there. Because you and I, it's like, okay, I'm going to go do it. I've got to take advantage. I've got to go charge. I've got to do something to change my life, right? But most people don't maybe think that we do. So can you walk us through, and I didn't mean to interject in your story, but I think there's a gold nugget that we can learn here of what is it that you did? What were the steps that you did when you were in the situation? Was it just throw your hands up, or tell me a little bit more about that specific event in your life?
That's a really great question, actually, that most people don't catch, is the how of how you do that, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's that everybody has that natural instinct that's fight or flight. Right? Mm-hmm. If an emergency happens, you either run to fix it, you jump in front of something, or you freeze, right? Mm-hmm. And I think I just naturally have the fight instinct, so that's part of it. I do think that you can train yourself that as well. Yeah. But right when all this was happening, excuse me, I should have had some menthol. Good. But right before all of this kind of imploded, I had just started my personal development journey. It was my first personal development book. I was 29 years old. And I was reading and reading, and I was building a part-time business from home in and around what I was doing, and just starting my entrepreneurship journey. And I think by reading all of those things, I just had in my mind, like for the first time, I had aligned with something that felt like me, right? Mm-hmm. I was raised in a family of non-entrepreneurs. And when I was doing this, my family kept telling me, horrible things like, you made your bed, lay in it, like, and I was like, God, that just does not feel right, So I had these mentors in my world who were like, you can create anything you want. You make a decision to change your world, you go do it. It doesn't take a lifetime. Like, do it now. And so I listened to them. I refused to settle. I kind of developed this theme quote, I guess, that some people are lost in the fire and some people are built from it. Yeah. And I think everybody has fires of life, and it's if they want to be burned, or if they understand that they're actually the fire and they can create a life no matter what happens to you. You've heard that life is 90%, 10% what happens to you, 90% how you react to it. Yep. That is totally true. Right? I watch my friends handle things sometimes, or some of the people I mentor, and I watch when life explodes and they're like, oh, my life, and I'm like, literally I had that situation this week. I was helping a friend and she was like, wow, what a great way to start 2000, like she was starting to go negative, and I go, what a great way to purge what you didn't need for the rest of your 2016, right? But the more you're filling up your brain, reading, training, pounding it in, you can't think like you used to anymore, and you can't think less than. I didn't even think as failure was an option. Like, I was like, I have 3 little lives watching me. You better show up.
Yeah. So that's awesome. So personal development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Step number one, right?
Yeah. First you tell your mind, then you can do anything, right? You can't change habits or situations without your mind agreeing with it. So, your mind will always win, no matter what. Yeah. So
my dad always taught me the concept of the law of attraction. I used to laugh at it when I was younger. Like, you think you can just do whatever you want, it's just going to come to you? I mean, come on. What world are you living in? But now I'm in this world, I'm like, that's exactly right. One of my favorite books, and you've probably read this book, is Think and Grow Rich, right? Napoleon Hill. Amazing.
Yep.
And talking about a mind shift change.
Yeah. So it's funny. I read that book. The first time I read it, I was like, I have no idea what it's saying, which is funny. So that I was like, how do I not understand something, right? I was a little arrogant. Like, how do I not understand what this is saying? It was brand new. So then I read it again and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the Holy Grail. Right? This is it. This is amazing. And then the third time I read it, I actually applied it to my life and was like, this is mind blowing. But me too. I remember a mentor going, a thought is a thing. And I was like, that's bananas. Seriously? I'm like, I think I'm a millionaire. And they're like, good. You should keep saying that. And I was like, right. I had no idea that, in fact, you can't do it until you think it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so as we kind of start down this conversation, right, of what's your path, I think that's one of the key elements. Obviously, you're spending time when you have a life-changing event in life, you obviously have to do something, right? Because like you said, it's either fight or flight. There's no other options. And I think sometimes people sit back and they say, well, what's my next option, or what am I going to do next? Or I don't even know what I'm going to do next. Well, you got to take it by the horns. I love my wife, and the reason I love her so much is because she's like, you know what? Either crap or get off the pot. If you're going to complain about it, I mean, just either complain about it or get over it, right? Go figure it out and get over it. Because the more you just perseverate on something, the more you think about it and you worry about it, and the more frustrating it completely it almost takes you out of the game. It puts you into a funk, and it's hard. It's hard once you're in that element to really get beyond that. So personal development, like you said, I think that's a great first step. So obviously overcoming some difficulties, you did that. What's the next step to really starting to identify that path? Like, how do you sit down and put together a plan? Or what do you do? What are some things that you do in your life, or with Life Intended when you started it? What was the process of starting that, and how did that all come to play?
That's a good question. So it's a couple of things, I believe. I believe there's a couple of keys to really, I call it being in the zone, right? Like when you're doing what you love, you're getting paid for it, which a lot of people don't make that correlation, right? They're like, I do what I love, but I'm broke. So doing what you love and doing, it's a combination of aligning, I think, creating an environment to win. You have to have an environment that supports what you're doing, both financially and personally, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, but that part's up to you. A lot of people are like, well, I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. I'm doing all these things. And I was like, well, you get the results that you get what you think. So I think that environment to me, I had created a circle that was so much greater than I was. I'm sorry.
Your dog wants to join the conversation, huh?
My Saint Bernard is whining.
He wants to join us.
Come here. Yeah, watch. I'll just introduce you to this. Come here. This is Titus, the wonder of Saint Bernard. Yes. Okay. All right, now get him. We'll lay down. Okay, sorry. They liked the dog. Sit. I'll put him out in a second. Where are your kids when you need them to put your dog?
Oh, I know, right? School, right?
Right. So you gotta have that environment, right? You gotta have the people around you that are just exceptional. I always say if there's someone standing next to me, they're better than me at something. I don't have friends that are on my same level, right? Like, I just don't. Like, I challenge myself to, rise up to that circle, and then your goal is to pass them, right? like do something better and create a new circle. So I have an incredible circle of friends that challenged me to say, Danelle, you're not content. You're not satisfied. You never struck me as a person that would settle. Somebody said that to me, and I was like, wow, geez, like, wow, but thank you. I needed that, You're right. I will not settle. So I knew I had to create something better. I saw, all my friends struggling. They were fairly successful, but they were like, well, I guess this is it, and I was like, wow. But the truth is, when you work your way up to the top, you have people who, who they stop training you, right? They stop mentoring you. They go down and work with the people at the bottom. And there's an upper level of leadership that has to happen. I was like, I'm going to create that. That makes me excited. That makes me passionate. So you have to align not only your environment, but also what you really want, what makes you happy, what makes your heart skip a beat a little bit, those things that really make you want to become a better version of yourself. Those are the things you have to follow, right? You take every opportunity. I think I tried and took every opportunity that came my way and was like, which one's going to be the right one? This feels right, this doesn't. But when you have that strong sense of self, your values and what's important to you, and you kind of line those things up, then you have the environment around you, then you get to, run.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned, the environment, having a good circle of influence around you. I've heard quotes say that, you're a product of the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
Yep.
And I think all too often in life, it's a big eye-opening experience for a lot of people, right? When they hear that, they look around and say, well, who do I hang out with the most? Maybe it's these people that complain about this, that, and the other. And there's no wonder your life's the way that it is.
Right.
I think one of the biggest problems in our society today, and I did a big rant on this on Facebook yesterday, and I but it's the sense of entitlement, right? We feel like there's a lot of people out there that think, well, just because my name is this, I should be better than everybody else. Or just because I went to college and I got a master's degree, I should get the highest paying job of the company. Right. And I mean, we are only as good, and when we're talking about creating this path of life and really trying to figure out who we are and what we're trying to develop long term, we really have to understand that every experience that we have in life, good or bad or ugly, prepares us for the next step.
Yep.
And I think, like you said, the best thing that we can have in our life is those people that are there to build us up. If your circle of influence are people that complain about everything, get out, run as fast as you can. Go find, go meet, network with people that are going to help you. It's not going to help you at all. Not only from the concept of from feeling good and being happy with life, but your level of success, and I heard another quote that says your level of success in life is correlated with the amount of the time that you spend in personal development.
Right.
Well, if you're around good people that are reading good books and having good conversations consistently, and you're doing that yourself, then you really can't be in a bad place. Now, one of the reasons that I wanted to have this dialogue specifically with you is 2015 for me was kind of a year of what I call the year of the funk, right? I was so busy trying to do so many different things that I had shiny object syndrome. I was like, well, and I was going from one good thing to the next, to the next, to the next, right? But as I visualize a path, right? We're walking on a path, we're finding a trail. You can look around when you're out in the mountains, and obviously have beautiful mountains where you live, and we have beautiful mountains where we live here. And I go hiking quite a bit. And even though there's amazing things that are around, you never deter from the path that you're on. Because the minute you do, you're in danger, right? You might fall off a cliff, or you might hurt your leg or something, because there's a path that's laid. So let's talk a little bit more about that path and maybe give us some basic fundamentals of how to establish the path, because there are so many great things. I mean, again, I did so many awesome things in 2015 I was so super excited about, but looking back at what I could have accomplished had I focused,
right,
I didn't accomplish half of what I wanted to. So tell us a little bit about that path and what that looks like. How can we better establish a path and stay focused direction-wise on a path, and maybe some tips and tricks that you teach with your consulting or whatever that we can implement into our lives. Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing to understand is, I guess it's probably a weakness of mine, but I'm always my number one critic, right? Like I expect a lot of myself, which I think is a great thing. I don't do it as a point of detriment to myself, but I expect a lot. So, as you're discovering this path, I want everyone to, I always tell them, I go, listen, this is a journey, and it's not like you can figure it out in 90 days, but you can sure make a dent in that deal by an extreme amount of focus, right? Because then there's people who give themselves years of time and they think that's okay. And I go, no, that's not okay, right? Or you'll be, 80 and gone by the time you figure it out. And that's what I was determined not to do, right? So, so I think, what's important is always be digging and growing yourself, right? Like if there's a day that goes by where I don't spend 30, 40 minutes on personal development and reading in something, I know that my mind naturally goes back to how I used to think. Like I literally won't go a day without it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's, and I'll tell you what, it's an easy thing to do, but 99% of people won't commit to that. They won't commit to that. And it's a fundamental part of discovering who you are, is knowing who you are in that path. Okay. Can you give me 10 seconds to handle the whiny? Okay. 1 sec.
Yeah. It's interesting. As you're walking away, I'm just going to throw a couple little gold nuggets that I've remember that I've heard. They say that, in life in general, some of the most amazing minds, people that didn't do anything, are those people that are in the graveyard, right? They have all these great ideas, great concepts, amazing stuff, but they never take action in their life. And I think what you're talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, is digging in and starting something. They say that you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great.
Yep.
Right. So we have to do something from a functionality perspective of, let's just get moving. Let's start with whatever it is. Write down a goal, write down what you want to accomplish, and take that first step.
Right.
Because like you said earlier in our conversation, I was doing this and I was going here and I was going there until something finally clicked, like, aha, yeah, that's what I wanted to do. But if you hadn't taken those detours, if you will, if you hadn't taken those other little paths that led to a dead end, it wasn't quite the view that you wanted, then you wouldn't have known that it was a dead end. Right. You wouldn't have known where to go and how to get back to that path.
Right, for sure.
So personal development, number one, right? Starting the path. Step number 2 is action. Can we agree on that?
Yep.
Okay, so tell us step number 3.
Yep. I think you put in with in with taking action. Let's do this, right? Like everything centers around action. The only thing to conquer fear is taking action. The only thing to take you anywhere is action. And most people like pause on that spot. So usually the circle of people around them is what helps make them move. Yep. But I think personally, you have to, if you really want to know and be happy with the path, you have to be doing things. Like I did books all the time about discovering your purpose, like little workbooks and stuff. I did, I did journaling. I did gratitude journaling. I did, everything imaginable to try and define myself and know what makes my heart beat, right? I would make lists all the time of things that are my favorite things, what to do. Because I think a lot of times as adults, we do this phase, right? We do what everybody tells us to do to a certain point, right? Then we kind of like, no, we're going to do what we want to do. We're not sure. Then we do what our group of friends does, right? And we kind of follow this path. And then we kind of get to a point where we're like, enough, I'm going to do what I was created to do. And then we get to this pause where I know a lot of moms, just because I work with a lot of women, come to this point. They're like, oh my gosh, I've done everything for everyone else for so long. I don't even know what my favorite color is. Like someone asked me, I remember when I first had the twins and my oldest, they're like, if you could just have a day off, what would you do for fun? And I was like, take a nap. I don't remember what I like. Like you kind of lose yourself sometimes in some of that. And so I think it's important to always be doing something you love, right? Like, even if you have to do for a while a job you don't like and you're trying to discover what you could monetize and do something every day that you do like, right? You like to hike, right? I love to hike, I love to be outside. I know that when I need to clear my head and think of great things or think through difficult things, both, I go to the mountains. That's where it happens for me. And luckily it's, 30 minutes. It doesn't take that long for me to get there. But, or I go outside or I go for a run, you have to know those things, because if most people run so fast, they don't take the time. They'd rather sit down in front of the TV and chill, and they think that's going to help them have downtime. Well, the downtime people need to be taking is spent on developing themselves and who they are and what they love. And that's when you're actually in an environment to think of the bigger things, right?
Yeah, we live in such a crazy world where there's so much noise every day, right? Whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, online, whether it's events, activities with our families, whether it's our own business that we're running. I think you bring up a really cool nugget that that just came to my mind of sometimes you just have to take moments of quiet to think, to reflect, to expand. I mean, personal development, right? There's still noise that's happening there, but when was the last time that I'm just thinking to myself, when was the last time I watched a video and instead of jumping into the next personal development video, I just took time to contemplate what just happened and see how it applies to me.
It's true. It's funny is I'm kind of, I'm an extrovert with events and all those things and all the people I love and know, but I'm a total introvert in the planning phase. And it's funny because I do believe, I'm a woman of faith, whether you are not, how you're connected to the world. I believe we were all created for something. I believe there's a dream in each of our hearts. I believe there's something we're meant to do and a purpose that is bigger than ourselves. And you can't hear that with other noise, right? And if you don't do that, I always tell people, I'm like, okay, do you think God wastes time of all the people in the world? Like, no, like he gave you a dream. It wasn't a waste of time that it's there and only you can do it. But so I always tell people when I go into this planning phase, like right after I do a big event, I'll go into like planning mode and people are like, where'd you go? Are you okay? I'm like, I'm good. I just don't want your opinion right now. Right? I'm good. I'm just having my time to develop what I think my goals, what my dreams, what my next step is to make an impact. And then I will take my counsel, right? And I always tell people, here's a big thing. Because when people are searching for their path, when people are searching for their purpose, they always get outside input. And I challenge people to change their input, okay, about what's coming in. And I say, if you're out there seeking advice, you're asking the wrong people, okay? Because advice is typically what you ask people who are on the same level as you, right? You're like, hey, tell me, what do you think about this, right? And here's the deal with advice. You usually ask people the answer that you already know the answer to, you just wish you didn't, right? You just need someone to confirm it. right? Like, is this right? Okay, tell me, right? Like, really use your brain. Like, you can make decisions based on you. What you really need to seek is wisdom. You want to go to someone whose bank account is where you would like yours to be, right? Don't take advice from people you wouldn't exchange bank accounts with. That would be ridiculous, right? You know, and don't ask questions of people who haven't been through that circumstance, right? Go to those people who are wise, who are, you know, invested. Like, I have a circle who gives me input, and it's really easy. You don't have to like sort through information if you're getting advice and wisdom and counsel and all that. You can just throw out the advice piece and go, I was given a brain for a reason. And you can seek that wise counsel to make decisions, because people who are bigger than you, when they give you wisdom, when they give you counsel, they actually care about your advancement and they care about your future. People who give you advice, they can't help it, right? It's human nature to watch out for ourselves. And so they're speaking to you advice based on what would be best for them. It's just, you can't like naturally change that. It's just human nature. So they're going to give it to you from their perspective, their success, what they think is best for you. When, let's be honest, right? When I jumped into being an entrepreneur and got divorced and did all these things, was my mom a fan? No, right? She was trying to protect me and was like, don't be an idiot. Don't do all these things. When she wasn't really acting on what was best for me, she was acting on what was best for her. So you have to, you know, now not everybody's is like that. Yeah, everybody's situation is unique. But my wise counsel became people who are entrepreneurs and achievers, and the ones who would put me in my place when I needed it. You know? So be careful who you ask to give you advice on your path you should take.
Well, I think that goes back to exactly what you were talking about earlier. You know, if you have the right circles of influence, then you can ask for the wisdom. And it's not advice, it's wisdom. But that's a very, very good point, because I think all too often we in life have a tendency just to go and reach out to those people who would give us the answer that we seek for versus give us the answer that we need to hear. Yeah. I think that's brilliant what you said. And so maybe that's the next step. And another thing that you said that I want to pull up the gold nugget you were talking about, how you sat down and you're quiet and you're kind of doing your own thing. I think when you start on your own path, you have to actually have a target in mind, or an end focus in mind of, okay, what do I want to accomplish ultimately? And how am I going to get there? Start, like you said, take those baby steps or those big steps to get started. But you obviously are going in a direction for a purpose and for a reason. And whether it's a godsend, like you said, whether you believe in a higher being that and its direction based on those quiet moments of meditation or of personal development that get you the direction, or whether it's wisdom seeking from someone else. I think that's great insight. Fantastic insight. I love it. I love it. I love it.
You said target, which is funny, right? Hold on. Okay. So these I keep around all the time. So it's interesting that you said that, because successful people all have a target, right? But people always ask, how do you balance all the different things? How do you make sure that you're achieving your purpose? How do you find your path? And I think once you do kind of the stuff we're talking about and you dive into that, your purpose and your path is right here, right? Like, there's only one bullseye. No matter if it's business, life, family, whatever, everybody has one bullseye, right? I have one bullseye, and I know exactly what it is. I can't share it all with you because it's a secret. But no, I'm just kidding. But when you have that one target, then you have the other areas of your life. This is what I tell people to do, right? I go, okay, you've got your family over here. You've got your business over here. You've got your spiritual side, your faith over here. You've got your health over here. You've got your relationships, whatever areas of your life. I tell people, I go, write them on the target. And I said, write the things that are important down towards the bullseye, right? Like, I go, okay, if we're talking about my kids, they are obviously part of my bullseye. They're my reason why. We can talk about the why and how to find that as well to make you move, because there's a difference between a why that excites you and a why that makes you do something.
Absolutely.
But when you have that target, my kids are here. And I go, okay, my kids are right here. They're extremely important. I've got a business meeting or I've got to volunteer. Which one comes first? I go, well, which one gets me right here, right? Well, my kids always take precedent. They're closer to the bullseye. That's how it has to make. And I made those mistakes before where I chose business first, like, oh, business. And then if I do this well, I can take care of my family better. Well, that's not true. My family always needs to come first, right? And I do things to create for them. But when you align like that, it's really easy to say yes and no to stuff. So I go, okay, does that get me closer to my purpose, to my one dream that I have to fulfill? That is my life. That is my purpose. No, well, then I don't need to do that today. You know, those kinds of things. That's what, you know, really excites me. So whenever I get an opportunity, I go, okay, does this hit the target anywhere, right? No, I have to say no, right? Even if I want to do something, you know, every hour of my time is allotted for, and, you know, my kids and making an impact in this world are of utmost importance to me. And if anything sacrifices those two things, I say no.
That's awesome. So maybe the next step that you're talking about in this path of life is prioritizing, right? Making sure your priorities are there. We had a question from Mitch. He says, how do you know if the right bullseye is identified?
Very good question. And I think it's something that's a little bit of you try and figure it out, right? Like maybe this aligns, maybe this doesn't. But I will tell you what I've learned is when you're making that bullseye, it has to be aligned with the core of who you are, what you stand for. When I do anything outside of my value system and my core beliefs, it can't be right. Like it won't work. So, you know, if I put, you know, like we all know making money's absolutely important, right? You can't do anything without it. But people get really tense when they're like, money's the end of money's, right? People misinterpret even how it's written in the Bible, whatever, right? I'm like, actually, I can explain that to you because I have some knowledge there. But it's important to have abundance, right? I have to be able to provide for my children. But my bullseye is, you know, so here's the crazy part, right? My bullseye is showing my kids exactly how to live, to be who they're capable of and do those kinds of things and make an impact. And some choices I make, I have to choose them over making a large sum of money. Or if someone's important to me and me doing something for business could hurt them, I can't do that because it doesn't go along with my values. You know, I've had opportunities to do that and I have to say no to those because that's who I am. If I say yes to them, things don't go well, you know? So knowing if you have the right bullseye is something, right? Like if you doubt, like, oh, am I running for the right thing? It's probably not the right bullseye. I think we are each created with instinct that we have to trust. And, you know, if you question, I always say, I have since I was little, for some reason, you know, I was kind of raised without my parents being really involved. And so I think I developed instinct at a little bit younger age because I kind of took care of myself. So it was always, Danelle, if in doubt, leave it out, right? Like, if you doubt it, there's a reason, like, just, you know, because I also did some other things where I doubted and I did it anyway and it didn't turn out well. So, you know, I mean, I think it's a little bit, try things out, see what feels right. When it doesn't, you got to realign the system a little bit. But most people, to their core, if they sat down and I had drilled them with a line full of questions, they'd be able to say yes or no, this is a part of me, this is not. So most people do know at their core. You have to take the time to go, you know, this is what I asked myself. Okay, now this is a little hardcore. So don't be offended, or do be offended.
I'm ready. Let's do this.
So I have a why that is so big for my kids that when I'm out there doing things, my bullseye is so defined that when I do something, I go, I'm doing this. And the only reason I wouldn't do this and fulfill this, I'd have to come home and I'd have to look my kids in the eye and go, you weren't worth it today. I didn't do it. Right? I didn't deliver. And that I have, like you have to align yourself with that to something that you know that you must do to your core that makes you even say no to things that could seem great for you, but that are detrimental to you, you know?
That's great insight. I've never thought about it that way. I mean, you know, I think a lot of times in business in general and in life in general, we talk about identifying your true purpose. And as we've talked today, thank you so much for this time. As we've talked today, I've realized that maybe my focus, my target is a little too big. And I don't think, especially last year, you know, I shared with you last year, 2015 was a great year for us, but I was probably on the outer rings of the circle, if you were, of the target. and really
Right.
missing the true purpose of what I was doing and how I was doing it. And even though I knew what my why was, I don't know if I could ever answer that question that you just said, where I ever even thought about that, of coming home and saying, you know what, you just purpose, whatever that purpose might be, and mine's my family as well. I want to be able to take care of my family as much as I possibly can. But I've never come home and said, you know what, I didn't work hard enough today, or I didn't do what I was supposed to. Therefore, in a roundabout way, saying, you know, my purpose wasn't strong enough. It wasn't sufficient enough.
Right.
So I think people listening today may have a big self introspection of, you know what, am I really doing what I need to do? Am I really focusing on that inner circle of the target? And I think we've given some really awesome steps to do that. So go ahead, keep going. Awesome insights.
Yeah. No, thank you. It is. It's a different perspective. And, you know, someone told me, I can't remember if they told me or I read it in a book, but they said, do today it was something like, okay, you know how proud you are of your kids, whether they do great things or they do silly things or they're idiots that day, right? You are so proud of them. You love them so much. It hurts. Like literally I was having a conversation with my daughter last night and I'm like, God, like if I could explain how much I love you, right? Like it's just impossible. It's awesome. So how proud you are of them. I always do a little self-check and I go, Danelle, at the end of the day, are you as proud of yourself as you are of your children? Like, did you prove it today? Because usually if someone has guilt or sadness or they're not delivering, it's really because they didn't deliver that day. They didn't show up. It's an inside issue. So, and most people's targets start like this and you have to whittle it down and you have to test and see what's the right thing. But I know at the end of the day, you know, if someone can actually, we all get haters, right? They're awesome.
They're always going to be out there. Who cares?
They're good. I love their advice. I always write them. I'm like, thank you for challenging me and helping me to know, yes, I did choose the right path because it means that to me. You know, I don't care. I'm like, great. I'm like, challenge away because you know that when you have those challenges and those gut checks and those things, you decide what's important to you and what's not. And you go, oh, that strikes me to my core. Why does it hurt so bad? Why did I get so mad? They said that. And I go, oh, because that's my core value. And my whole goal is to leave people better than I found them, you know, and I can't do that unless I'm growing to my best and I'm impacting, I'm showing my kids that, you know, no matter what anybody says about their mom or what happens in the future, they know that they had an example of someone who loved her life and loved the people in her circle. And she worked every day to make sure that they took the actions to become their absolute best and live their potential, right? The only way you can do that is by example. So I know when anybody, and I think that's why I get mad at people who quit and who give up on themselves, because to my core, I can't stand when people don't live up to their potential. Yeah. I'm like, you're wasting time. You're wasting your moment. Little eyes are watching you. What are you doing? You know? And then I have to go, well, everybody makes a choice when they're ready to do that.
So what's interesting about that is, you know, as you talk about identifying that true purpose, one thing that I've always tried to do is live life without regrets, right? And what you're talking about is living every single day to the fullest extent so that you don't regret the things that you didn't do that day.
Right.
And yep. my motto, just so you know, 2016 is it's going to be my year. It's going to be an awesome year. But my motto this year is the year of the finisher.
Yes.
I start so many things in my life, like I'm talking about the outer circles of the target, that I'm like, yep. I could go do this and I could go do that. And I get halfway through and I'm like, okay, course correct again. Where was I at? What's my true purpose? But I think, I'm so grateful that we're talking this early in the year because the insights that you're sharing are helping me tremendously. So I'm extremely grateful. But I think for me, I think that's ultimately what my year of the finisher, if you will, is really playing a part of is how do I live every single day without a regret, without missing my purpose, without missing my potential? Because if you go to bed at night and you've done everything you could that day to make sure your life is completely in line with your target, then it doesn't matter what else happens. Haters are going to hate, right? Players are going to play, right? But if we have that exact focus, that laser-like focus on what we're going to accomplish, we'll accomplish something so amazing that we'll look back in here and go, how in the world did I just do what I did?
Yeah.
So cool.
When you have that laser focus, right, that you're hitting your target, like think about a sharpshooter, right? They have to account for the winds. They have to account for anything coming in between it. They have, right? But when you have that laser focus, it's amazing how all the areas in your life like end up circling together, and more things happen successfully in your family, in your house, in your life, you know, and you just have to know exactly, you know, where you're headed in order to make that happen. Otherwise, you're like this. You're coming in with the wind, and you're going to miss the target, right? And you'll hit some of them, which is great. But for me, I want to hit all of them.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting that you're talking about that, because one of my favorite movies as of late is American Sniper. And if you've ever watched that show, I mean, it's like, you're exactly right. You have to account for all the external. You have to take things in your life into consideration. You have to take those external things into consideration. But if they detract from the ultimate goal, then they're just external.
Right.
I mean, that's a great point. So there's a question. Ralph asked us a question. Clarity is power, Ralph. You're exactly right. But he asked a question here for you. What would you do? What would you want to do if you didn't have to work?
That's a good question. You know, it's funny. Somebody asked me the other day, actually, I think he's on our blog. He said, he reminded me to go do something, and if I won the lotto someday, right? So if you had $300 million, what would you do? And I was like, you know, what's funny is I would do exactly what I'm doing right now, and I would make more, and I would definitely travel a lot, and I would, you know, give my kids these experiences. But I think the important thing is to not raise entitled children. Yes, some things would change. Let's be honest. I would probably live in a different home and have a different car and spend money on things that I don't think are that necessary to spend money on. But, you know, I would definitely be doing what I'm doing. I would just not have sponsors anymore, and I would pay to bring, you know, the big leaders of the world in myself and go, here, I'm going to bless you, because I think the more I'm given, the more I'm entitled to give back. And so, you know, if I had all the money in the world, I would bring people in who would change people's lives and train them and do the same platform, and it would just be at a bigger scale. So, you know, either I'm going to win the lottery this weekend, or I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing and make it myself without it.
Well, you know, and you know you're in a good place of self-actualization. You talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You know you're in a good place of self-actualization when that's the answer. Because I'm just like you. I love where I am. Now, would I change a few things here and there? Absolutely. But I love where I am right now. And in one of my life quotes, my favorite quotes or mottos is Zig Ziglar said it. He simply said, you can have everything you want in this life by helping enough people get what they want.
Yeah.
I've seen so many people who have made their millions, but have no joy or happiness in their life. It's not the money that they made, it's the people that they spend it with, right? It's the time element of who they focus with. And you know, we're talking about being a God-fearing person. In the Bible, it talks about the parable of the talents, where much is given, much is expected. And the more that we get, the more that we can expand that. That's and right. I believe, like you do, in a God that wants us to do that. He wants to give us abundance. He doesn't want us to say, okay, you're going to have to go through all this, and you're going to just you pour your whole life. I mean, he gives us opportunities. And I think as we formulate that path in our life, and as we do these little steps, I wrote them all down here so I can keep track of them. So we talked at least about 10 of them. But, you know, as we take that first step into the dark, I mean, that's where it all begins. I know there's probably people on this little blab with us today that are just like, you know what? I don't even know where to start. I don't even know what to do. What would be your advice to them? What would be the first thing you could say to them?
Yeah. I would say go take a walk, right? Like, here's the deal is most people, they have an idea, but they're afraid to say it out loud, right? I go take a walk. And the first thing you thought of when I asked you, what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to say that when you die one day you did, right? What do you need to accomplish right now? What are you feeling? And I go, listen to that, feel it, move in it, walk in it, and watch it expand. When I started Life Intended, my goal was to give people first-class training to help them achieve more, make more money, become more, live their potential more. Right? Like, I had this idea, and my idea was, hey, I'm going to have 30 people in a room, and I'm going to make an impact one at a time. Then those 30 will become 60, right? Okay, let's be honest. That's where I started, right? And then one of my friends, Corey, he goes, why would you go small? I'm confused that you have such a big goal and you want to go small. he's like, call the big guns, go do it, right? When I wanted Grant Cardone to come live on the stage, right? I'm like, he's worth $500 million. I bet he'd come for free. Yeah, right. Right. So I just had, these ideas, and all I did was take a step, right? I took a breath and I said, this is what I want to do. I have no idea how it's going to come to be, but I know that if I set my mind to it and I align my life to make it happen, it will happen. And sure enough, it has come down to like days for me to be able to afford these massive events. Like I think the last event I had 70 grand come in and out within a matter of 6 weeks. Like, it's not like a small thing. It's like heart pounding, like, sure, I can get you that. Right. And I had all these huge things to make happen. And I never know exactly how they're going to come to be, but I have the faith that if I do the work and I listen to that gut, then it's going to come to be. And I will tell you, it all started just over, a year and a half ago, where I didn't go for a walk. I went on a trip. I went on a trip and I sat on a beach, and I literally had no one and my phone didn't work. And I was like, well, son of a gun, this sucks. What am I going to do? Right. And I wrote in a journal, and the last day I sat on the beach and I leaned over and I wrote life intended in the sand. And I took a picture of it and I said, I got it. That's what I'm going to do. And it took me 5 days of just going for a walk. Right. Now, don't quit your job and do crazy things, but go for a walk and listen to yourself. Trust yourself that you know how to become the greatest version of yourself, and then never be afraid to take action on that, because if you do and you deliver as you're capable of, it'll turn into something like mine did. And I'm shocked now that I have Darren Hardy coming in April to an event, and then I have all these other huge speakers calling me going, can we speak on the stage with them? And I'm looking at my phone going, all I did was go for a walk. And listen to myself and go, all right, time for you to show up as you want others to. That's it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've got the chills.
It's awesome. Good. You're doing it. You're doing it, though. That's the cool thing. Yeah. We need more people in the circle doing it. And I think most people are right there, like standing outside the circle, like, how do I get in?
Yeah.
And go for a walk. Jump right in.
It's the steps, right? The action steps in your life that are going to change it. Because you're gonna fight. And keep in mind, we always want to make it sound like everything's all ponies and unicorns, right? But it's not. There's a lot of work that goes into it. But I got pneumonia
after the last one. Let's be honest. It's a lot.
So much stress, and so much lack of sleep, but the reality is, you made an impact in someone's life that needed to hear that. And because of that's what keeps you moving. That's what keeps you moving. It keeps you moving and shaking. And because you've defined that purpose, that ultimate idea of what you want to accomplish, you've created amazing things. And I can only see this as the beginning for you. I'm so excited to follow you, to learn from you. I'm hoping to get down to one of those events one of these days, very soon.
You have to.
Now, you told me before we were on the phone, just before this, kind of preparing for this or whatever, and you told me that you have an event coming up. Is that right?
I do. Yes. So for any ladies or any men on here who know ladies, which is probably all of you, I've got a really unique women's event, January 22nd, 23rd. It's Friday evening and Saturday all day. Flying in some masterminds, Nadia Melton, who we talked about at the beginning of this. But truly, for those people who refuse to be in the 90% and want to be in the top 10% of the world, this is where they need to be. So lifeintended.org is what has all of my information on that and the event. I would love to invite any woman who truly, both personally and professionally, is ready to find that purpose, to define it, and actually monetize it.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for letting me
hear it. No, listen, I think we could stay on here all day long and chat. And this has been truly a pleasure and an honor. I'm absolutely honored that I have the chance to talk with you here on Blab. But it's great to get to know you better. I'm so excited for what you've accomplished so far. And I'm so excited to see what you're going to accomplish in the near future.
Well, vice versa, Brian. I know our families have more to do together, and it's going to be really cool. the web, right? How crazy is that all of us can connect and interact and fire each other up, even from far away, from video. So I hope everybody following you knows what a gift you are, because you're serious about the greatness that's in you, and that's awesome for your family. So I love watching you too. I'm happy to help in any way I can.
Okay, so any other questions, guys, before we jump off here? I could take her all day long, but any other questions?
We'll do it every day someday.
We'll do
all
it.
day.
We'll have to do it again. This was a real treat for me. So, okay. Well, awesome. Thank you again. Lifeintended.org. Lifeintended.org. If you need to find any information about any of the events. Thanks again. Really appreciate it, and we'll connect again soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Take care.